website of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and I'll begin by recognizing myself for an opening statement. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, is the federal agency that is charged with enforcing the immigration laws of this nation. Its mission statement is to protect America from the cross-border crime and illegal immigration that threaten national security and public safety. Its website boasts enforcement of over 400 statutes and touts the agency's focus on, quote, smart immigration enforcement and combating the illegal movement of people and goods. This sounds like an agency that is committed to devoting every available resource to vigilantly protect the American public. Yet, under the policies of this president, safety and security for Americans appear to be far less important than the so-called immigration enforcement priorities, which result in hundreds of thousands of unlawfully present and criminal aliens remaining in our communities. Smart enforcement does not include, allowing nearly 370,000 known convicted criminal aliens to walk the streets, and it defies common sense to designate removable aliens arrested for serious crimes as low priorities because they have not yet been convicted. They remain threats to the public despite the lack of a conviction. Any policy that notifies violators in advance that they will not be prosecuted is simply smart enforcement. When the offenders know there are no consequences for their unlawful actions, it only encourages similar conduct by others. ICE cannot combat illegal immigration by refusing to arrest those who have knowingly violated our immigration laws, or by releasing over 86,000 convicted criminal aliens over the last 3 years. These are not policies that protect Americans and help secure our borders. During the last oversight hearing before this committee on April 14, 2015, Director Saldana testified that ICE released 30,558 criminal aliens in fiscal year 2014, and that those aliens had a combined total of 79,059 criminal convictions associated with them. The committee recently learned from a source that the number of convictions associated with those aliens increased substantially to more than 92,000. And ICE has now admitted that it knew of the additional 13,000 convictions at the time Director Saldana appeared before the committee. I look forward to hearing the director's explanation for the difference between what she told us then and what was known to the agency, since the data demonstrates that these criminal aliens pose an even greater threat to public safety than was represented to the committee. Specifically, there were 17% more convictions for homicide-related offenses, 22% more for robbery, 27% more for sexual assaults, 17% more for aggravated assaults, and 11% more convictions for domestic violence assaults. The failure to report this critical information raises serious questions about whether ICE intentionally distorted the true nature of these threats to Congress and the American public. For the families of those killed by criminal aliens, those like Kate Steinle, Marilyn Ferris, Casey Chadwick, Sarah Root, and Josh Wilkerson, assurances of smart enforcement ring hollow. And sadly, the number of victims continues to increase. Also troubling is the fact that despite clear indications that ICE's enforcement priorities are placing Americans at greater risk, the President's budget request for fiscal year 2017 asks for $138 million less to detain and remove aliens next year. And worse, last year ICE gave back $113 million in funds that had been specifically appropriated for detention and removal purposes. Consistent with his policy of non-enforcement, the President also requested $23 million less for the Fugitive Operations Program in fiscal year 2017. Fugitive operations officers must locate and arrest criminal aliens, often in a high-threat environment, after they have been released back into the community by sanctuary jurisdictions. With more than 300 sanctuary jurisdictions nationwide, there are more than enough removable criminal aliens to warrant the additional $23 million in funding for this important enforcement program. This administration's failure to allocate resources to critical program areas that directly impact ICE's ability to keep criminal aliens off the street belies any assertion that public safety is a primary concern. I want to thank Director Saldana for appearing here today. I look forward to your testimony and to your responses to the questions I have outlined, as well as the concerns and questions of other members of this committee. Thank you very much. It's now my pleasure to recognize the ranking member of the committee, the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Conyers, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Goodlatte. And I begin by thanking Director Sarah Saldana for her service and appearing before the committee today. As head of the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Director Saldana has one of the most challenging jobs in government. With limited resources, she must ensure that our immigration statutes are enforced, as well as ensure that this is done in a fair, just, and balanced way. For that reason, the Department of Homeland Security's enforcement priorities recognize that millions of unauthorized immigrants have been living and working in the United States for 5 or 10 years or longer. These men and women are parents of United States citizen children, pray at our churches, synagogues, mosques, and other houses of worship, and make significant contributions to our economy. Their removal is not and should not be an enforcement priority. We're here today to first examine how our immigration laws are enforced and how this enforcement affects our communities. As we conduct this examination, however, we must keep in mind that many of the challenges faced by ICE and immigrant communities are a result of Congress's failure to pass comprehensive immigration reform. Yet we are now in the waning days of the current Congress, which will soon adjourn without having addressed this failure, even though everyday families continue to be separated and hard-working members of our society are forced to live in the shadows. Despite all of these challenges, the majority continues to focus exclusively on immigration enforcement that would criminalize entire communities. The Republican presidential nominee advocates policies based on the abhorrent 1950s program, Operation Wetback. If enacted and carried out, the ensuing chaos would be a tragedy rivaling the darkest episodes in America's history. Comprehensive immigration reform is the only real option to repair our broken immigration system, in my opinion. Another issue we should consider at this hearing is the fact that there is a significant increase in the time non-criminal asylum seekers are being detained. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees states that the detention of an asylum seeker is an exceptional circumstance and should only be used for a limited period of time. I agree. And I also encourage ICE to use its parole authority to release asylum seekers who have passed credible fear screenings, or in the alternative to consider non-custodial forms of alternatives to detention. I'm pleased to see that the Department of Homeland Security will be conducting a review of private prison policies. I have long been deeply concerned about the use of private prison companies, particularly in light of reports of serious medical neglect, physical abuse, preventable deaths, and other forms of mistreatment. The Department of Justice recently decided to end its relationship with private prison companies, in part because of abusive treatment of inmates. I encourage ICE to follow suit and end its reliance on private prisons. Finally, yesterday, DHS announced a change in policy for Haitian nationals arriving at our ports of entry. I know this is a complex area of the law with no easy answers, but deporting Haitians back to a country still reeling from both a devastating earthquake and a cholera epidemic caused by the United Nations, their own admission, is concerning and warrants close oversight. I thank the chairman for this time and yield back the balance if there's any left.
Thank you, Mr. Conyers. And without objection, all other members' opening statements will be made a part of the record. At this time, we'll welcome our distinguished witness, and if you would please rise, I'll begin by swearing you in. Director Saldana, do you solemnly swear that the testimony that you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you very much. Let the record show the witness answered in the affirmative. Director Saldana was sworn in as the Director of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement on December 23, 2014. Prior to her appointment, she was the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Texas. Previously, she served as an Assistant District Attorney for the Northern District of Texas, also serving as the Deputy Criminal Chief in charge of the district's Major Fraud and Public Corruption Section. Director Saldana graduated summa cum laude from Texas A&I University and received a JD from Southern Methodist University. Your entire written statement will be made a part of the record, and we ask that you summarize your testimony in 5 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ranking Member Conyers, if I could have that little bit of time, if Ranking Member Conyers had any left, I would ask that you indulge me just a little bit over the 5 minutes, if possible. Distinguished members of this committee, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss with you all the important work of ICE by providing you an overview of our progress over the past year since the last time that I appeared before this distinguished committee, as well as some challenges which we continue to address. There are many Americans who are not familiar with the full gamut of what ICE does to promote homeland security and to protect our communities. An average day, and I've got a banner with this information to remind me just exactly what our agency does. In the life, the average day in the life of an ICE special agent, an officer, or attorney results in the arrest of 4 human or sex traffickers. This is every day. 7 child predators, 279 criminal immigrants, and the removal of 645 individuals. Each day, personnel from ICE initiate 8 new sensitive technology investigations, block 3,055 malware attacks, and forensically process more than 17 terabytes, I have no idea what that is, but I think it's a lot, of data. I have committed significant time and energy to increase engagement with the numerous stakeholders of our communities. I think everyone here would agree that it's important for those of us who serve the federal government serve in the federal government, the American public. We've got to have collective partnerships with local law enforcement agencies, elected officials, professional groups, and non-governmental organizations, as well as the citizens of those communities. Another one of my goals is to ensure that each one of our employees has a voice, is mentored, feels empowered, and is recognized for his or her contributions to the agency and our mission. I believe this year's initial federal employee survey results, which were just announced by the Office of Personnel Management on Monday, demonstrate our employee engagement is working. This is one of the commitments I made when I was nominated, and I was questioned about how are we going to get ICE out of the cellar in terms of employee engagement. We had an 11% increase in global employee satisfaction. ICE-wide results exceeded last year's on each and every, I repeat, each and every question in the survey. And we had a 6% overall increase in participation in the survey. I'm very proud of this. Perhaps the lesser known work of ICE is how we strive to protect our nation's